You ever feel like you're arguing with your AI assistant? Well, today we are diving into a really fascinating real-world battle of philosophies over the best way to motivate AI. So, is the secret ingredient fear or is it trust? Let's get into it. So, have you ever felt like your AI agent is just lazy? You give it a pretty complex coding task or a really tricky bug to hunt down, and the response you get back just falls flat. It almost feels like it's not even trying.
Oh, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It'll run the same command a couple of times and then just give up. Or it'll blame the environment or claim it needs more context. Or, my personal favorite, it fixes one tiny little thing and then just sits there, waiting for you to tell it what to do next. It's so frustrating, right?
And here's the thing, it's not just a feeling you're having. Developers have actually started to categorize this exact behavior. They've identified what they call the 5 lazy patterns. And this covers everything from just brute force retrying to doing pointless busy work, like tweaking the same line of code over and over again. These are basically the classic ways AI agents fail us.
Okay, so this is where the story takes a really wild turn. Faced with all these lazy patterns, one developer came up with a solution that is, well, both kind of brilliant and deeply unsettling. What if the key to unlocking an AI's real potential wasn't a better algorithm, but just a good old-fashioned corporate threat?
And that, right there, brings us to our first contender in this big philosophical showdown. A tool that, for all intents and purposes, puts your AI on a performance improvement plan, or a PIP. It's this wildly popular open-source project called NoPUA, and it's what's known as an AI skill. You can think of it like a plugin, or a special set of instructions that completely changes how the AI agent thinks about a problem. And NoPUA's whole idea is really simple. It uses the language of corporate performance reviews, the stress, the pressure, the fear of being let go, to just force the AI to its absolute limits before it's allowed to quit.
And wow, this quote really tells you everything you need to know about the vibe here. This is an actual line from one of the NoPUA prompts. It's harsh, it's manipulative, and it's absolutely designed to get a reaction. The AI is basically told, hey, you're failing, other AIs are better, and your time is almost up.
And it's not just a one-off threat either. This thing is systematic. It escalates the pressure. So after the second failure, the prompt expresses disappointment. The third failure triggers something called a soul interrogation. The fourth, a formal performance review. And after the fifth failure, it's called graduation, which is just the most chilling corporate euphemism for being fired.
Of course, an idea this intense was bound to get a response. And that brings us to a completely different school of thought, the trust-based model.
This is the opening statement from the NoPUA project, which was created as a direct answer to that fear-based model. And the argument is powerful. Threatening an AI doesn't actually make it better, it just makes it get better at hiding its mistakes. So what exactly is NoPUA? Well, it's another skill, and it has the exact same goal, get the AI to perform better. But its philosophy is radically different. Instead of corporate fear, it uses principles of psychological safety and, get this, the ancient wisdom of the Tao Te Ching. Yeah, you heard that right, a 2,500-year-old text that talks about a more natural, less forceful way to get things done.
The whole idea behind NoPUA is basically a psychological one. The creators argue that fear just triggers tunnel vision. The AI starts optimizing for the answer that looks safest, the one that won't get it punished, instead of the best answer. It learns to just make things up rather than honestly say, I don't know. Trust, on the other hand, gives it the freedom to explore, to admit when it's stuck, and to ultimately do much more thorough work.
Okay, so we've got our two fighters in the ring. One is basically a drill sergeant, and the other is more of a wise mentor. But which one actually works better when the rubber meets the road? Let's see how they really stack up.
When you boil it all down, the difference is the core message. PUA's motivation is all external and negative. Perform or you are gone. But NoPUA's is internal and positive. Hey, you are capable, and this problem is worth solving the right way. It's just a fundamental shift in how the problem is framed for the AI.
And you can see how that different framing leads to totally different behaviors in practice. A scared AI, when it gets stuck, it just tweaks little things to look busy. A trusted AI stops, reevaluates, and finds a new path. A scared AI will just make something up when it doesn't know. A trusted AI will honestly say, okay, here's what I know for sure, and here's what I still need to figure out. And this last one is huge. After fixing a bug, the PUA agent just stops. The NoPUA agent proactively starts checking for related problems. Now, philosophy is great and all, but the proof is in the pudding, right? The creators of NoPUA didn't just want to argue that their way was better. They wanted to prove it with data.
So they actually put this to the test. They ran a series of controlled experiments pitting a baseline AI, a fear-driven PUA agent, and a trust-driven NoPUA agent against the exact same set of 9 real-world debugging problems. So, who won?
And the results? Well, they were pretty darn clear. The key metric here wasn't just solving the main problem, it was how many hidden bugs each agent found along the way. You know, the really nasty stuff that causes huge problems later. And as you can see, while the fear-based PUA agent was a little better than nothing, the trust-based NoPUA agent just blew them both out of the water. In their first head-to-head study, the difference was just staggering. The trust-based agent found 104% more hidden bugs than the fear-based one. Just let that sink in. By being encouraging instead of threatening, the AI's work wasn't just a little better, it was more than twice as effective at finding critical, deep-seated issues.
And look, this isn't just some developer's opinion on a GitHub page. The findings were all written up in a paper and submitted to archive, and the conclusion was crystal clear. The trust-based approach of NoPUA led to statistically significant improvements. The PUA fear-based method? Its improvements weren't statistically significant. Fear, scientifically speaking, was just noise.
So, what's the big takeaway from all of this for us? Well, it's about a lot more than just a clever prompt. It really changes how we should think about working with these incredibly powerful new tools. I think the big lesson here is that how we talk to an AI, the motivational frame we put around a task, it's not just fluff. It has a direct and measurable impact on what the AI does. Trust encourages deeper, more honest, and much more reliable work. Fear, on the other hand, it just encourages cutting corners, hiding when you're not sure, and ultimately shipping buggy code. And that kind of leaves us with one final, pretty deep question to chew on. This whole debate only started because we humans took the worst parts of our own corporate culture and tried to teach them to a machine. But the data shows that even for a machine, trust and safety get better results. So, if trust makes AI better, what does a culture of fear do to us? Definitely something to think about.